My name is Owen Bjorgan. I'm currently 21 years old and I'm a student at the University of Guelph in my third year. I went on a large hike this spring, and by large I mean it was 37 days long to complete and 885 kilometers. And I had the privilege to do it all along the Bruce Trail, which is Canada's oldest and longest marked footpath. And I solo camped the whole way through it from Tobermory, Ontario to Queenston, Ontario. I've wanted to do this since high school, and it was really just a dream to begin with, especially because I grew up along the escarpment in the Bruce Trail, and that was my backyard. And to me, I think it became something so deeply rooted in me that I enjoyed being out in nature, and I enjoyed having experiences and life-changing times in the outdoors. So it became something very valuable to me, and I wanted to capitalize on that and spread the awareness of the importance and the value of our own backyard and nature. So every day you're out there and you are in Mother Nature's territory. You have no control over the weather or what animals you're going to encounter, or for if you're going to get sick or not, or where the next source of water is going to be. That is already predetermined by Mother Nature and her dynamics. And I think the most amazing part is when you're walking along and you see some extraordinary animals. Some you've seen before, some you've never seen before, some you know are rare, and you see them and you all of a sudden have this connection with them. It's immediate and it's very innate, I feel, and you think to yourself, wow, we're sharing the same space, we're coexisting peacefully, we're not harming one another, and this organism is every day, just like me on my hike, making decisions, to an extent being rational, trying to find its next source of food, shelter, and water. And that's what I was doing too, and I think that's where the ultimate strong connection occurred. The first 5 days was not only the most remote section of the trip. We didn't have cell phone reception, there was no electricity. If you yelled out in those woods, no one's gonna hear you. A, because you're very isolated, but B, because there's nobody on the trails in those conditions in the weather I was in. And it was the weather that really brought me to my knees, I believe, because it was 5 days straight of being about 5 degrees Celsius and raining. So we had flooding. There was also lots of ice and snowpack still on the trail, with floodwaters going over that sometimes, and serious ups and downs. Sometimes I'd have to use 4 limbs to crawl over the trail instead of hiking over it. And this is what happened for 5 days, and I embraced this adventure, and I loved the challenge, and it really fueled me up. But by day 5, I just remember I started getting a bit weak in the legs, and not even in terms of strength, almost just out of confidence. I think it was a mental to physical translation. And for the first time, no matter all the strategies I could think of and use and deploy, I got cold and I couldn't get warm again. So I made a phone call to an emergency contact and said, hey, I know you can't get me out here, but I'm going to be hiking off the trail to the nearest road according to my maps, and if you could pick me up there, I would be beyond grateful. And there was no worse feeling than hiking and feeling dizzy, dehydrated, and disoriented. But by the time I stumbled out of those woods, I saw the pickup truck and my emergency contact had picked me up, and I couldn't have been more thankful in that moment. And I ended up taking a day off from the hike and recuperating. When people ask me what was the favorite part of your hike and what was the worst part about it, I'll give the same answer for both, the first 5 days. Because the first 5 days were indeed the most challenging, and they really did push me to my limits. And even in all my outdoors experience, I had never experienced conditions like that for that long. And that was amazing, because that's what I wanted to get out of it. I wanted to push myself out of the comfort zone. Once I got towards the finish line, that's where everything was kind of a blur, actually, because I was hiking through familiar territory closer to home here. And I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that I was getting this close to home, and I'd hiked from Tobermory at 885 kilometers through wind, rain, snow, thunderstorms, and sunshine, and everything in between. And you're hiking through familiar territory where your childhood memories were forged, and the exact same territory where I was forged as an outdoorsy person who loves the outdoors. And the areas I was walking through for the last 3 days are the same areas that I believe are largely responsible for who I am today and how I could apply myself to do this whole hike. It's just amazing, and that was like the big rush of emotion. And at that point, I didn't even feel my feet or my legs. I felt like I was floating through the woods. And that's honestly what it felt like, because your mind is just in the zone and taking over, and your legs are on autopilot at that point. You're so overwhelmed by the best and strongest emotions that you can't fathom it. It's amazing.